Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Chris.
Morning.
Morning, Chris.
All right, we've got a big agenda, so we better get going. We've got a quorum. It's the October 30th Grant County Budget Advisory Board meeting. And I'm going to call it to order at 8:31. Present, we have Chris Barrett, Christina Sloan, Elaine Gisler, Gabriel Wojtek, Quinn Hall, Renee Baker, Terry Hines, Zach Cheswick, Chris Kaufman, Bill Jackson. The lineup keeps changing. I think that's everybody, though. And the first action is approval of the minutes, and I forgot to send the minutes out, so we're going to postpone that. We do have to do one more joint meeting with the Grant County Commission to go over several decision points that we usually coordinate with the Commission on. So first up then, postponing that to our next meeting, the minutes. First up is the Grant County Attorney. And let me pull up, share that budget screen. And I've been trying to figure out how to make the view larger in this program, but it doesn't really seem to have the capacity to make the print larger. So I'll just try to verbalize, I guess, a lot of this stuff. So first off, we've got, just to explain on some of the salary and benefits, we did plug in a proposed position that Christina is requesting, a new prosecutorial assistant, I believe. Is that right, Christina?
Yeah.
And so that plays into and salary and benefits. And like I said, generally speaking, we leave the new position request up to the commissioners to determine, but I just wanted to point that out. All right.
If we do get that, we don't need all that overtime. But right now we're, new staff are maxing out overtime and not able to take all their vacation time for a couple years in a row now because we're so slammed. So anyway, that second line item could have some movement if we get that position filled or approved.
Okay. Make a little note there. What do you think it would go down to if we did approve the position?
Corey, do you have input on that?
Say that again?
Well, I was asking Terry if she had input on that. I would hope we wouldn't need overtime at all with this new position, but I don't think that's totally realistic given the expertise that Terry and Emily have. But I would think it would be greatly reduced. We aren't over our budget for this year, though.
Yep. All right. So I guess moving on to the expenses, the other expenses. Subscriptions and memberships are close to the same as they've been. At least for 2019 went down a little bit, but typically they're right around there, $1,600 for subscriptions and memberships. Travel request is similar to years past. Obviously this year we haven't seen or used any of it because of COVID. But in 2019, we used 3,440, so 3,500 appears to be a reasonable request. Office supplies and expenses, the request has gone up a bit from 6,500 budget in 2020 to 7,000.
I'm not sure why that went up. Terry, can you weigh in there?
I think I meant to leave it at the same that it was.
Yeah, right. Let's move that back because we don't.
Let me just look at the historical expenditures. Yeah, I think because in 2018 you spent 5,300, 2019 you spent 5,700.
I would like to point out that this year, I think that line item is down because of COVID. Nobody's been in the office, and so our landline phones have not been running what they typically do when everyone's in the office for returning phone calls and such like that.
Yeah, I did ask Terry about this because I was surprised it's as high as it is because we are a paperless office. And she did point out a lot of that is phone calls with, you know, various people in the criminal justice system.
Phone calls? All right. Well, then, like I say, before pre-COVID, it was 5,700 was the actual expense. So you still think you're really going to spend 65?
Have we ever spent more than 6,000? Can you go back further?
Yeah. So, let's see.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you guys heard me. I was saying that that office expense line does have our landline phones in it. And so because of COVID, that line is lower this year than it typically runs because everyone's not in the office to use the phones making calls, resolving cases and stuff like that. So if we're all in the office, it is more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we did
I'm
hear
not talking about this year. I'm not talking about COVID. In 2018, we spent 5,300. In 2019, we spent 5,700.
And prior to that, it was a good bit more. So I can't explain that. That also probably includes more paper supplies and stuff. Although really, Andrew was paperless from the beginning. So I don't know. I don't have strong feelings on that. I could go 6,000, 6,500.
I think 6,000 will cover it myself.
That's fine.
Equipment maintenance, in 2018 it was 1,500, then dropped down to about 800 in 2019. So 1,500 is probably good. Membership, civil training, that doubled. You want to explain that, Terry or Christina?
Well, I asked to put more in there. Actually, well, yeah. So we're over our training this year, and actually we did fewer trainings than we normally would have because of COVID. Civil trainings, even though there's only 2 of us now in the office doing civil trainings tend to be more expensive than criminal. And part of this is I'm still bringing Kima up to speed. But I could go 1,500, but I do think I'm over budget there, and I want to put more money, at least match the criminal, which is 16. And then we bumped the criminal training up, assuming we would get a new prosecutorial assistant. So that's where we're going there. I think there's some movement there, but training's really important. And that's, in the Black Lives Matter days, it's something we're getting a lot of pressure on, and people are asking us for reporting on training. So FYI on that.
So is the other one, the 280 line, criminal?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're both 2,000 for 2021.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we bumped criminal up.
Okay.
And actually, so there was a lot going on. Utah Prosecution Council, as a state agency that does the criminal trainings, they reduced all their fees in COVID days, and that was supported by the state. And so that's one reason why our numbers are low in 2020, although I can't explain 2019. So we don't expect that to keep those sort of repressed prices through Utah Prosecution Council. There is no similar equivalent on the civil side that's supported by the state. So that's also one reason those tend to be more expensive. Training's a place, I really have a bad attitude overall about training, but at the same time, it is an important component, and it's something people want to hear about that we're doing. So, I think we could have some movement there, but I do think we need a healthy training budget.
Well, what about 1,600 for both of them? that would cover, you know, it looks like more than has been spent in the past, recent
Well,
past.
why don't you move civil to 16, and why don't you keep criminal where it is, but with a note that that would be reduced if assistant isn't approved?
Okay. And then books, actually looks like a little bit of reduction there from the previous budget, but similar to what we spent in 2018 at $750, so I think that one looks good. Major crimes, 10,000, which I guess you don't really know, but or maybe you do, I don't know, but spent 9,200 in 2019. And
Yeah, and
so,
that was essentially one big trial, and so really we don't know, and we'll spend $10,000 on one big trial, so we do want to keep that there. And there's years where we could exceed that amount for sure.
professional and technical, and just get a little more.
So I asked Terry about this. How is this different than deputy legal services? And on the criminal side, they use consultants on different things now and then that are not necessarily attorneys, so we bill it differently. Otherwise, Terry would need to give you more info on that line item.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part,
You're correct.
so, I mean, generally, it's, there's a 540 in 2015, 650 in 2016, 398 in 2017, 0 in 2018. Then something hit big on 2019, 4,476. So.
What was that? Was that related to the murder trial, Terry, or why was that such a big jump in 2019?
I think it probably was. I don't recall exactly.
You know, we also had all those. Is that where we build the translation services out of? I think so. Remember how we had to get a bunch of stuff translated into English or Spanish for that murder trial? I think that's how we built that.
Yep.
So that's what, yeah, that's what's going on there. That's translation services. Which in that, you know, that was the murder trial with numerous Spanish-speaking parties, so that was essential that year. You know, that's a hard one also to predict.
All right.
But we do have a number of Spanish statements that we always have to try to figure out how to get them translated. So it is important to have money in that line.
Okay.
You could probably reduce it if you understood that we may go over in that line in the future.
Okay.
We just have no way of knowing.
Then the cell phone allowance, how are you calculating that one?
Yeah, I'm confused on this, Terry, because why is our cell phone allowance? I mean, maybe that's just year end. So the fact we've only used 2940 is just because we're not through the year.
Yeah, that's not, but yeah, I guess spent about 1,000 less than that in 2019. I mean, it's pretty easy to calculate depending on, you know, what, if somebody needs data, then it's $90 a month. Without data, usually $60 a month. And so there's 12, you know, so however many you tally up, and then.
Yeah, and Terry did all that math. So 2020, we have Kima in there now. And of course, we've only been paying hers for a month or so. But for 2021, Kima gets the lower benefit. And once she's licensed, we might bump her up. But for now, she gets the lower benefit. And then we added in a lower benefit for a new prosecutorial assistant. So that one you could note will reduce if assistant not approved.
All right.
And it sounds like, I mean, I'm happy to talk more about this assistant with the board here, but it sounds like the commission is where I need to spend that time.
We can talk about it real quick. I mean, our agenda is super weighty, and I think Gabe has to get off early too, so.
Well, just in a few sentences, just so you guys know, since 2003, we've had the same staffing level on the criminal side in the county attorney's office, which has been 3.5 paralegals and 1 prosecutor. I haven't crunched all the data because our software doesn't do it for us. We have to manually go in and track caseload increases. But we do know since 2011, the district court docket has more than doubled. At the same time, now we have body cam footage, and it's important for people to understand what a huge time suck working with evidence is, and especially body cam footage. It takes a lot of time, and cloud-based services, not just at the county level now that we're using Drive, but in other, all the different agencies use different cloud-based services, and it's really cumbersome working with these huge video files, which now are crucial in every criminal case. So that takes up a lot more time. And then on top of all that, you've got all this pressure from the community to increase enforcement. And you're hearing from the sheriff and the police that they don't have the staffing resources to do that too. But if they're provided staffing resources, we certainly don't have the staffing capacity to then prosecute any of that stuff. So there's no reason to talk about, increased enforcement of any of the things, noise, code, ATVs, masks. We can't do any of that without additional staff in our office. Emily and Terry are our district court experts. They're both, we're way over the overtime amount, and Terry had to lose significant vacation days last year because the workload prevented her from taking time off. And so we're really kind of at this breaking point and on the criminal side.
Okay, thank you. This is a little one, but fuel, I mean, actually never spent more than 200 in fuel.
That's fine. I think we increased it because there was some change in the way that the cars are being rented now or something, but I don't have any background on that. Terry, if you want to weigh in, otherwise.
We're potentially going to move into an enterprise fleet, which means that all of our vehicles are going to be better gas mileage than they have been in the past. So there's actually, one of the selling points is that we'll spend less on fuel if we go that direction. And so, you mind if I put it at 250, which would still be more than you ever spent, even with the old cars?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Special department supplies, 2,500. Terry, what are you planning on expending out of that?
That's mostly our lunches when district court's super busy. Sometimes, if we have a trial and we have numerous law enforcement witnesses, either locally but also from out of town, we'll do, just like a bagged lunch for everyone in the office. That kind of thing is what we expense out of that. All
right. So, yeah, I mean, you've actually spent more than that in the past, but I guess with COVID, it's probably not likely.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same. Right. We've got the administrator's office has the same thing, and we haven't really spent anything out of it because there's no food expense for meetings this year.
Yeah.
And then witness expense, I guess this is another one that you just need there in case, right?
Yeah, just in case. And, on both of those, the major crimes in that one, Matt's pretty aggressive going to trial on things. Right now, we're doing everything remotely, and that's why we haven't spent much on witnesses. But in general, we have a lot more trials going on, even small ones, than we have in the past in the office.
All right. And then with inventory, this one's gone up. It was 4,600 budgeted. It's gone up to 7,500. You want to go over what you plan on?
Yeah, this one's important for people to understand that we run Max in the office, in the county attorney's office. And one reason why, there's numerous reasons, but one huge advantage to them is that we can sync, our desktops, the laptops, and then there are iPads. Some people have laptops and some people have iPads for court. And so instead of when we converted to paper, it was essential to get into this Mac system so that when you're in court, instead of having a huge stack of all these files like they used to have to deal with, they can just pull up everything on the Groovy Macintosh product that each person has. 2 of those laptops are, Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're like 5 and 7 years old or something. One in particular is really glitching badly, but 2 of 4 of these Mac products, sort of the accessory products, need to be replaced in the next year. And they cost about $4,500 for 2 of them. And I know that seems high compared to other computer products, but it's really essential to running a paperless office. And then we added stuff for a desk and a chair, assuming, and probably, one more equipment purchase. So that's gone up. Assuming we get the prosecutorial assistant, it will be, we can go back to $4,600 if the assistant is not approved.
All right, then law enforcement training's at 600. That one is, I mean, it's more than it's been spent. It's been at 600 budgeted for a long time, but looks like the most that's ever been spent is 268.
That's because since we started that line item, sorry, Christina, because we are short-staffed and overworked, we haven't had as many trainings as we would like. We do have a goal to provide more training to law enforcement next year, and hopefully COVID will allow that to happen.
Okay. And then here's another big increase, deputy legal services.
So that's only, hey, that's only increased because I put the 50,000 for the lobbying budget in there because I wanted it someplace before I got direction from the council. So we can reduce that to 20.
I already put that over in the other.
Great. So
I
yeah,
put that in the council already, so I can put that back down to 20.
Yeah. And just so you know, it shows I've only used 4,000 this year, but I have a $9,200 outstanding bill, and the sheriff has asked for some support with a policy update that I don't have time for. So I'm going to farm that out to this HR attorney we're working with on another sheriff thing. So I do expect to use that full budget this year.
All right.
But not more, but the full budget.
Okay. Well, that's it then. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Christina or Terry on the attorney's budget?
Thanks, Christina, for illustrating that, your staffing, going along with law enforcement and that sort of tension. It's good to sort of be reminded of those elements. And thanks so much for all the dedication and commitment of your office.
Thanks, Gabriel. I appreciate it. Okay, y'all have fun then.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
Christina.
you.
Terry?
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Next up is our roads and bridges budget. I believe we've got Bill here. Let me switch over to that one. So this is its own, not in the general fund. And so we're going to go over revenue first, and then get into the expenses. You with us, Bill?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. All right. So the first revenue line item is, it's a relatively new general sales tax that we got approved by a vote of the citizens. And I'm projecting a 6% increase over 2019, which would basically mean that we would be seeing a 3% increase in 2020 and then a 3% increase in 2021. So it's fairly conservative, but given the COVID and everything, this is a rough trend. I mean, I think the trend actually is more in the range of the upper 7%. Didn't quite feel super comfortable putting it up at that point, but this is kind of in line with what we discussed prior with regard to projecting sales and use taxes, which is to project some growth, but more or less skip 2020 instead of compounding it. Then we've got some revenue budgeted that occurs sometimes from the roads department helping out with trail maintenance. The big one is our B road allocation, and appears to me to be, looking at our B road allocation, that it hasn't been affected by COVID. It's relatively right in line with what we received in 2019 for 2020, and so I'm projecting the same kind of just flat allocation going into 2021. Are you aware of anything, Bill, that would cause that projection not to be accurate?
I am not.
All right, so we're going to just go ahead with 100% of 2019 for the 2021 B road allocation. One of the requirements also of the passage of this optional transportation sales tax is that we couldn't reduce our contribution to the roads department from the general fund, and so that's locked in at $200,000, and that goes into helping offset the road department's service of general fund vehicles, et cetera, maintenance, all this kind of stuff. Expense reimbursement, we kind of averaged, 25 to 30,000, and so I put that in, and again, that's when the road department does work for other departments or funds, then they get reimbursed for that work. I don't know, we've got this other little line item, other current service. Do you know what gets coded to that, Bill? Is that just more charges for services type stuff?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
All right.
What basically on the revenue side, it's the encroachment permits that we get, the encroachment permit fees that get, that's generally what goes in there.
All right. And interest is projected to take a big dive because interest rates are way down, so that's why that interest has dropped significantly. This miscellaneous revenue is our, we got a grant contract with the CIB to procure some easements from Sitla, and it seems like that's not going to happen this year, so I think we're going to have to carry that over to 2021, so I plugged that in. Is there anything else we should plug in here? Bill, we've got, sell fixed assets, which we used in 2020, 134,944. Is that the...
That's the loader, that buyback.
On the loader. And then do we expect anything like that to be happening next year?
No, we didn't do the loader. So the only thing that may happen is some surplus on some vehicles and.
Yeah. So that's what another thing, I guess, a little behind on. Well, we haven't. I just barely got some figures from Enterprise Fleet proposal late last night, and so I haven't had a chance to really plug those into the budget fully yet. But I guess part of the concept is that if we lease vehicles from Enterprise, it's kind of a lease to own agreement, a master equity agreement, that we would sell off our older vehicles. And so I'll have to probably do a little more tweaking before we do the, approve the final budget to plug in what we expect to get out of selling those old vehicles if we do proceed with the Enterprise master equity lease agreement. So that's something I might have to bounce back to. And anything else, Bill, that we missed on revenue? Does that look like it covers it?
I believe so.
All right. So let's go over to the expenditure side. So just maintaining the same level of employees. There's some hiring freezes that happened this year, but I think next year we're going to proceed with recruiting for those positions, but there's no new positions being requested.
That is correct.
And so the increase is just relatable to merit program increases and salary benefits increases. Oh, and one other thing that I need to point out, and we'll get to that later on the agenda, is I've already plugged in a 1.4% cost of living adjustment, which is exactly what the current inflation annual 12-month average inflation rate is. So that's another thing to point out. And we'll get to that later in the agenda. All right, public notices. Looks like it's relatively good and reasonable based on the past. Travel is okay. $4,500 for office supplies might be a little high based on the last couple years. So for 2018, Bill, you spent $3,100. For 2019, you spent $2,700.
Right.
So do you need 45?
Yeah, I just wouldn't leave it there.
Right.
Essentially, you know, you never know when you're. I haven't really had a chance to talk to Matt. I know he has some kind of rotation on his desktops and stuff, but to my knowledge,
So that wouldn't go out of office supplies though, or it shouldn't. I mean, it should be in inventory if you're going to buy any kind of like.
yeah, we could put that in inventory. You know, so you know, I don't know. We can drop it down to 3,800 or 4,000 or something if you want to.
Then fuel station supplies, pretty in line with what we spent this year. We had some kind of maintenance on the fuel station too, didn't we?
We did. You know, we're always buying, you know, filters or hoses and things like that. But we also had on the, I guess we'll call it the computer part of it. We had some pretty major upgrades we had to do.
All right. Then equipment, supplies, and maintenance. And so this one's significantly more because of a motor grader rebuild.
That's correct. We're keeping it 220, you know, just for general maintenance and things of that. Of course, you know, the filters, everything to do with maintenance of the vehicles and the equipment comes out of that budget, and as well as any high-end mechanical that we have to send off, and that's what that 90,000 is. That's our actually it should be about 95,000. I just got to kind of update on that, but the numbers line up, I think, with 315, and it's got that 95 in it.
All right. Shop supplies looks pretty good relative to 2019, maybe a little more, but utilities showing a bit of an increase from 2019, which we may see. And then our lease payments. I guess a question I have is, have you plugged in anything for an enterprise lease in this budget yet?
Yes, down on the bottom of the.
Oh, okay.
Down
So
on
this
the-
one is for the two graders, right?
No, what you're looking at there is for the two graders.
Yeah.
The 60 is the two graders.
All right. Then your fuel, you got at 140, although you spent about 161 in 2019.
Right.
You think
Yeah,
140 is going to cover you?
I think so. It's kind of well, actually, I wouldn't mind busting that up. It all depends on how things roll out next year on some of my projects. And so we probably quite possibly use more fuel, but it's kind of up in the air at the moment. But so if it went up to 150, I'd be pretty good on that, I think.
That's kind of right in the middle of where you would be for 2018/2019. professional and technical is going up, and it's quite a bit more than actual expenditures. What's up with that one?
Well, we got the unified between the Grand County and Moab City transportation plan update, and that's 25 of that. The city has 15 going into it, and of course UDOT has 140. And then there's expenses on over in the triangle for flood work and pushing snow. That when we need to get there quickly, we use Ute Construction that's over there nearby. So it's quite a jaunt over the Morris Triangle from here. And so that's part of that budget. And then I have some, I'm going to try to do some geotech over on Hastings Road. We're having some failures over there, and it's going to take some engineering services over there to figure out what's going on.
All right. Then this next one, administrative services, as the board members might recall, just some helping out with the general fund, with HR, payroll, etc. Easements. This is the expense side of that $166,000 in revenue that we'd get from the CIB, so that just kind of balances that out. Do we need to add anything else in, or is that all that we have for expenses on easements?
Yeah, I think so. We've already paid out the 24 and change to CSI, to get those easements and legal road up on them and things of that nature. But I think we're good there, and I think, as you're well aware of, that on those D roads, they're suggesting that we don't. There's some that we won't be getting easements on, so I think we'll probably be under that. But I wanted to keep it at that original price for now.
Yeah, well, that's the full amount, so I might as well budget that. We've already spent some on the legal description.
Correct.
That was last year, or last year, I can't remember. Then cell phone. Do you know how many people you have with cell phones?
I have 3.
3 at 90 or?
Yes. I blame maybe at 60.
Then special highway projects, like chipping costs, road base, pilot project. Then insurance is just the county's the liability insurance. Trying to see. Is there any reason why it'd be 20,000 seems like way more than needs for insurance?
Oh, there you are. Okay. Oh, we can. What was 19?
19 was 11,919, but we're already bumped up. I mean, our insurance renewal probably, but 13,531 year to date, and that's probably all there is to it. So I'd say that 15 would cover it plus any increase.
Okay. That's one.
All right, miscellaneous supplies. Kind of on 5,500 requests, which is somewhat on track with the 4185 we spent year to date.
You just go down to 4,000.
And then miscellaneous services. I don't know what this one is. What do you charge to this account? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah. That's 610, correct? So we got, there's
20.
some, I'm sorry, what?
620. I mean, it's pretty close to what you spent in 2019. 2019 was 23,207. Bumped the budget up for some reason in 2020, but we're not going to hit that.
Yeah, so there's Verizon wireless payments, so our subsistence payments come out of that. Some of our getting our staff, our road staff, getting their ICC physicals, things of that nature come out of there.
All right. Then you got 5,000 in buildings. Is this just like maintenance on the buildings?
Correct.
Do you expect to do it, or is it just a contingency?
Yeah, it's just, you never know, you get a, high wind, roof blows off or whatever on some of these sheds out here, so.
And then the next line, other capital equipment, is that just similar kind of contingency for?
Correct, and oftentimes we'll have to replace the camp crew generators, things of that nature.
All right, then road equipment, is this for actual purchases?
Yeah, well, about 145 of it will be for the loader, and that'll be again the purchase buyback. So in 2022, they'll buy that back for $1 more, and then I have in there some attachments for the skid steer that we purchased this year.
All right. And you got 12 for inventory. What are you going to buy for that's inventory?
A lot of the inventory is, it's nuts and bolts and things of that nature.
They haven't spent anything out of there for 2 years.
That's also our signage, and I think that's been coded going into special highways.
Oh, so if we replace every sign in the county with a UTV speed limit, how much is it going to cost?
Right now, we haven't got that figure, but they're approximately about $27 a sign, and we'll figure out that. But I don't know if we're going to replace sign every one, maybe just the hot spots, But we're probably in the neighborhood of at least $2,500 or more, depending on how it rolls out, Chris.
All right. Well, that would cover it, though. So you think just 2,500 would cover signing UTV speed limit?
We're supposed to be coding in our other signage that we get as well, and our posts and substrates and things like that, and we haven't done it. But what I could do is probably take that down to 10 and take 10 out of the special highways and make sure that gets coded right. That makes sense.
All right. Well, I mean, it's not a big deal. You're already running in the black with what you got, so it's all going to roll over. Might as well just leave it there just to be sure that we've got this UTV thing covered. If
I haven't got all my research done on that yet, so it's it's going to be fairly pricey.
All right.
And then plus the man hours to do it.
Yeah. Then uniforms.
Yeah,
Probably
that's kind of basically we just, kind of monitor that and steel toed boots, winter coats that the employees that need them. So we don't supply every year. It's just kind of when they get wore out. Boots we supply every year. They go pretty quick.
all right. The mechanics tools, and that's just more or less like renting the personal tools from your mechanics, right, for county use.
That's correct. Probably on average, every mechanic that we have 4 of them, including our fleet manager. So we have 4 of them. Just the best guesstimate. I have it on record, but they've got from $60,000 to $80,000 worth of tools, personal tools, including their boxes. So I think that's a fair deal.
All right. Then 2,000 for training, and this 30,000 is what you're guesstimating for the enterprise lease.
Correct.
All right.
That's off the latest, I think, and greatest I think I got as well last night.
All right. Yeah, I'll also have to go and plug the same numbers in throughout the rest of the county for that enterprise lease. And then the final expenses, we've got we use some of the optional transportation sales tax to fund 2 different trails related items. We have a schedule that we save up for paved path maintenance that should cover maintenance needs for our elevated Colorado River bikeway, the pedestrian bridge, and the old highway paved trail that goes up to Bar M and 313. So we sock away about $100,000 a year into that fund. And then the other component of that is operations for the Grand County Active Transportation and Trails, $153,000. So between the 2 of those, we'd be sending $253,000 of that optional sales tax over to Fund 47. And then let me just do a quick check on the balance, 8260. So that leaves $272,828 that we can send either to the fund balance of 21, or if you want, Bill, we can send that to your capital projects budget. Which would you rather do?
I think the fund balance right now.
All right. So this will be money that will go into the fund balance for Fund 21. So this budget's running in the black. Anybody have any questions for Bill for the Fund 21? We'll also move over and hit the other fund that they have, their capital fund. But before we do we have any questions on the Roads and Bridges operational fund budget?
This is Chris Kaufman. I just have a comment.
Okay.
I just wanted, Bill, to let you know that, and you probably already figured this out since you haven't heard from me, but we had talked much earlier in the pandemic about the possibility of the county wanting to borrow B road funds to make it through, but we're not in that situation anymore since tourism revenue bounded back and we got the CARES Act money and so forth. So that's not an issue as far as we know.
Okay, yeah, I thought it kind of died down, so, I was breathing a lot better about that, yeah. But I was willing to do it, you know.
All right. Yeah, so I guess just to explain to anybody who's wondering what we're talking about, we were concerned with major revenue losses in the spring, that we would have cash flow issues in our general investment account. And the idea was that if that happened, that we might pull some money out of the roads investment account as a borrow to cover payroll and whatever expenses from the general. But Chris Kaufman says we don't need to do that. So just a little explanation as to what we're talking about there. And then the Fund 35 is the account where we do a lot of our big roads projects out of. And I think, I just need to look real quick. Looks like I maybe didn't fill this out quite yet. Do you know how much the opening balance was, Chris, on the B-Roads PTIF for capital? Or I guess this is just the whole, I don't know. Do we have a separate capital? Or just one B-Roads PTIF?
I think there's just one PTIF, but two accounts in Cassell.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, this is showing that at the end of the year, there's about 3.5 million. Of course, there's expenditures this year. So I think that generally speaking, we just kind of budget to pull the full fund balance. It may actually be even more than 2.5 million. But how much in road projects do you figure you're going to have next year, Bill?
I think right now I need to get that geotech done on that Hastings. So I just plug in what we got there. Have them, obviously the expenses for Arbor and Hecla project this year. But so we should have somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.4, 1.3 or 4. But once that gets all.
All right. So this is a fairly simple budget. We're not really going to, Bill's going to put his rollover money from Fund 21 into Fund 21's fund balance. And so the only revenue is the revenue we're pulling out of the fund balance. And so I'm just going to put down 2.5 million, and on the expense side be the same, so that whatever project Bill wants to do, he's covered on. And so that's kind of how that one works. It's fairly simple. We just, obviously you just don't want to spend more than you have in the bank.
Not a problem.
All right. Any other questions on the roads and bridges budgets before we move on? Cool. All right. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a budget in the general fund for the Museum of Moab. I'm not sure if Forrest is on or not. We're kind of moving faster than maybe what the schedule showed.
I'm here, Chris.
Oh, good. All right. Let me pull that up real quick. So the request for 2021 is $99,099, right, Forrest?
Yes, sir.
And does that include or exclude the utility payment?
That excludes the utility payment.
All right, so then the request for 2021 is $99,099 plus $2,700 for the utilities, which probably needs to go up, actually. I think I'm going to actually bump that a little because 2019's utilities were $3,390. We're already up to $2,600. So I think we actually probably should put that up to more like $3,400 to make sure that we cover that. Do you want to go over your request for 2021, Forrest?
Briefly, I'd just say that this is a 5% in terms of the contribution to the museum. It's a 5% increase over this current year. The primary benefit of that is to fund several key positions that we've been able to increase in terms of both talent and hours. Our curatorial and collections manager, we've now gone through almost 12 months having somebody who can focus exclusively on improving our collections care, better care of individual objects. We've invested outside of the county appropriation close to $15,000 to move all of our collections into archivally appropriate storage facilities, mounts for the very sensitive objects, mostly pots and baskets. It also allows us to continue to fund content development as we've moved during our extended closure, more of our programming to the website. And that gives us an ability to expand the stories that we have in the exhibit experience, and are now just beginning to welcome visitors from the community and museum members for appointment-only visits through the middle part of next month. We've been successful in receiving grants from the Utah Humanities to help us with some programming and offset some of the staff costs. We have received a grant from the Utah State Historic Records Advisory Board to begin digitizing the 20,000 photographs in the Fran Barnes collection. You know, many of you may know that Fran Barnes wrote about 40 books about this region. And then we've also received a grant from the Utah Office of Tourism to match our marketing budget so that we can reach out to, particularly to the West Slope, and in this COVID year and environment, also to increase our presence in Salt Lake City. We feel like we're making a lot of progress, even though we've been closed, to taking better care of the collections that the community has entrusted to our care. And one of the things we're really excited about doing into 2021 is expanding our oral history program. We want to expand that. We have about 50 oral histories that have been digitized, transcribed, and in print form. And there's a lot of that walking around history that the museum has been unable to capture over the last 10 to 20 years due to short staff. So that's our goal for the coming year. And I'd welcome any questions anybody has.
Anybody have any questions for Forrest?
Chris, hearing none, I just want to say thank you for funding, partial funding of the roof replacement. That work was completed about a month ago. And the good news is we had no leaks during last Sunday night's rain.
That's great. That's good to hear.
Thank you much.
All right. Thank you, Forrest.
Take care all.
And one more little bit of explanation on this budget. Even though it's in the general fund, the mitigation portion of our TRT is what pays for this. And so we transfer this same amount of money out of the Fund 26 TRT mitigation fund, which we can use for museums, over to the general fund to cover this expense. So it gets offset by TRT. Okay. All right. Thanks, Forrest. Thanks, everyone. Moving on. We're up to our USU extension. We help fund the extension services in Grand County. Mike, are you on?
I am.
All right. So because this budget looks a little weird because the employees for the USU are not county employees, and so I can't really plug them into our little salary and benefits right now in this program. So the salary and benefits request are down here at the bottom. When we import this into our accounting software, I move this back up where it needs to go. So salary request is 33,100. Benefits request is 15,266. And then looks like the rest of your expense lines are exactly the same budget as you requested in 2020. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I guess one question I have is, tell me again what you think the timeline is in moving into the new campus.
Okay, so the groundbreaking is supposed to be November 16th or 17th. That's a Monday or Tuesday. And then they say that the building, my last understanding was the building would be ready to be moved in next November, mid-November. We pushed back the start of construction just a little bit, so I would say that it wouldn't be impossible, or it would be likely that we probably wouldn't be able to move in until December probably of next year.
All right. And then remind me again of what you're expecting from Grand County for M&O contribution.
Okay, so, once you get into a building like that, the operation and maintenance fund or costs, or just whatever the costs are with the building. The expectation, looking at the Davis County building, which is larger than ours and does have more things they have to pay for. They have to pay for snow removal and things like that we won't have to. We're estimating that our O&M is probably going to be at least $15,000, and it could be upwards of $20,000, but somewhere between there. They'll probably estimate the costs for the first year, and then once we know the actual cost, then we'll just pay our portion of that.
Okay. But we won't really see that probably until 2022. I mean, predominantly, right?
Right. There'll probably have to be some payment in December, but I think with the money that we have in the budget right now, and with the expectation that there's still going to be some restrictions on travel and things like that, with some adjustments, as long as it's appropriate with you and the budget committee, with some adjustments within the budget, we should be able to take care of that. And we have that rent money, and so that's a good portion but that's going to go a good ways toward paying that O&M in the future.
All right. And then also, just for the public and the other board members' knowledge, the state legislature appropriated $1 million toward the USU Extension's facilities in the new campus. And so I think that money's just been directly sent over to the USU. It was going to be passed through from Grand County, but I think they just figured out a way to send it straight over. So that's pretty exciting, I think, for USU Extension. But it does come with a little bit, increase over what we're providing for rent, I guess up to doubling from $10,000 to potentially $15,000 for M&O. So we wouldn't be dealing with rent, right? It would just be M&O.
Right. And okay. I would like to mention that the university has appropriated funds for a 4-H position. So we hired Catherine Hansen in April. And so we have a new employee that the university is paying for, and they're providing her a small budget. So we have more resources within the community that Extension is helping with. Then we actually going to have a part-time person here that's going to work on vape electronic cigarette prevention within the communities, particularly in public schools, that will start, I think, next week. That's the temporary position, though. That's only for 9 months. But again, it's something that Extension's trying to help with. But the 4-H position is permanent. So currently it's a part-time position, 3/4 time. My hope is maybe it'll become a full-time position at some point. So
That's great. Anybody have any questions for Mike on USU Extension Services? Okay, pretty easy, huh? Thanks, Mike.
thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's time.
Yeah, you
Thank
do a
you.
good job. Thank you. All right, next up, kind of revisiting the Old Spanish Trail Arena. Steve, are you on? Might be running a little early here. What did I say? So maybe we'll just table that one, and then when Steve comes back on, I told him around 10, and so we'll table that and come back to it when Steve joins. Let's move on to our public defender budget. This is the budget as required by the state of Utah. We have to provide legal defense services to individuals who are determined to be indigent. And this is includes several different line items. So this first one we have is actually this professional and technical services, the 310 line. For $16,000 is for one particular contract we have with Steve Russell for contract or conflict attorney services. The next line is our public defender contract, which is not been renegotiated for quite a while. We've got, some interest from, or some expression of interest from our public defender to look at caseload increases and renegotiate that contract. The initial request was a 50% increase in the contract. I don't know if we'll end up at that point. The negotiations aren't likely to be able to occur until next year or a new contract. I do think it's likely that due to the increase in caseload that we will have to renegotiate this contract at a higher price, and so that's why that one's going up. The special legal services, we've been getting some miscodes in there, which we've moved out. But this one's sort of a miscellaneous indigent defense line. And then down, I don't know why health insurance is in here. That shouldn't be a line in this, but conflict attorney costs. So this would be all of the other conflict attorneys besides our one contracted conflict attorney. And this one is pretty variable from year to year. $105,000 has always been enough to cover it, but just barely. It's hard to really say, though, exactly how that line item is going to pan out because it's the judge appoints conflict attorneys. And so that's that one. We also, the next one, the parental defender, we have a contract specifically for indigent defense for juveniles, $52,000 contract roughly. And then we have this $5,000 for the possibility of covering any kind of appeal. And then this last item, indigent capital defense. We used to pay into a sort of insurance pool with the state of Utah. looks like 2018 kind of got two payments rolled into one, but in speaking with the attorney's office, et cetera, we kind of felt like it might be better to, instead of paying on that insurance, which we've never used, and we've probably paid over $100,000 to it over the years and never used, to actually bank that money ourselves into a designated fund. And so that's what this is. We canceled this 2019 was really 2020 was really the first year that we dropped out and decided we were going to send that money to a designated fund. We kind of canceled that for 2020 because of COVID and a massive revenue reduction, but we may, if it looks like it, amend that back into the 2020 budget and start putting that money into a designated fund in case we need it. This would only apply for aggravated homicide where the death penalty is being sought. And so it's a kind of a far out possibility. But in speaking with county attorney, she hasn't excluded the possibility of seeking the death penalty. So that's it for the public defender budget. Anybody have any questions on this? Okay, moving right along. And then we'll move into my budget. County administrator. So the salary and benefits is dropping down a bit because of the transition in staff from 2020's budget. And subscriptions and memberships. It used to be that some of what I would consider to be the commission subscriptions and memberships were coming out of this line item. But I took those and moved them over to the commission's budget, and so 100 should be sufficient. Public notices are fairly variable. Really depends on what's going on. It's been as high as 2,600. 2019 was 735. 2020 is up to 684. 1,500 is kind of a good middle ground for any potential public noticing. Travel, obviously, 2020 we've done no traveling. In the past, it looks like travel has not been as high as the budget, and so I dropped that one down to 1,000 from 2,250, and I think that should be sufficient to cover it, especially considering that COVID may be a factor next year as well, and traveling to physical locations may not actually happen. I set the office supplies to be the same as 2019. It could indeed be lower than that because we've more or less gone entirely paperless in this office, and so it may actually be less than that, but that would cover the 2019 expense. Equipment maintenance is just kind of $1,750, which is relative to our copy printer machine contract, maintenance contract. Fuel, I dropped that budget down a bit also to $150, which is really covered historical expenses. Cell phone allowance is calculated based on our current cell phone for Mallory and I. And inventory I put up to $1,500 because we may need to purchase some enhanced computer equipment. We haven't really determined yet, but both Mallory and I have been struggling a bit with our ability to do Zoom conferencing her computer's being slow. We don't know why it's being slow. But Matt's going to take a look at it. We don't know if it needs to be replaced or not, her laptop. And then schooling, I said at 2,000, which has kind of been close to what it's been over the years. And Mallory's expressed some interest in potentially doing some training. So that's it for the County Commission Administrator's budget. Anybody have any questions on it? And so it's not really on the agenda, but I'll just breeze through also the County Commission's budget. We've got just the regular salary and benefits as prescribed by the ordinance that approves their salaries. The benefits are just FICA, Medicaid, and workers' comp that we're required to provide to everybody. They don't get any kind of health or retirement benefits. Subscriptions and memberships are relative. I bumped it up again because I moved some stuff that was being coded to the administrator's line, but it was really more of a commission membership.
What sorts of things does that usually apply to, those subscriptions and memberships?
Well, let me try to see if I can pull it up. The Times, we might go over this too, Gabe, when we meet with the commission. The Times independent newspaper subscription, Public Lands News, which nobody ever reads, and it's just piling up in their mailbox folder. Chamber of Commerce, and then a few other small ones. The biggest one is National Association of Counties. I don't know if you want to stick with that again or not. I think we'll come up with a list of all the memberships that we've got going and have the commission decide which ones they want to stick with and which they don't. There's some other smaller ones. I'd have to pull these invoices because they were paid for by credit card, and I can't tell exactly what they are, but they're not really all that significant.
Yeah.
But, like for instance, this Public Lands News, those are those little newspapers. I don't know if the council cares about them or not. They seem like they're kind of almost ignored. But that's that.
Okay.
Then there's all of the council members' budgets for attending conventions and whatnot. Professional services was used for the former government study committee, so there's not really any need to have a budget for that for next year, I don't think. And there's a cell phone allowance calculated, based on what commissioners could opt into. And then just random supplies for the department, $1,000. Then getting down to the bottom one, commissioners have expressed an interest in, well, for one, we've got this discretionary line item, which we normally set at about $20,000, which oftentimes gets used, to capitalize on various planning project proposals that pop up, or a variety of other things that we don't really know what's coming, but we want some capacity to be able to engage, depending on circumstances, with consultants, et cetera. There's also been a tentative request for some lobbying money, which I've added into that, which is why we're up to $70,000 on discretionary, because it's the normal $20,000 plus this idea of adding in a legislative lobbying budget. That's something that we'll talk about mostly with the commission when we have our joint budget meeting with the commission. I was thinking it'd be the 17th, but I don't know now because there's another joint meeting with the city of Moab being scheduled for the 17th also. So regardless, we need to schedule a joint budget meeting sometime mid-November with the commission. So I just wanted to kind of breeze through that real quick also while we have some time waiting for Steve to join.
Would that lobbying money be put eventually, if it were approved, would it be put into professional services, or would it get its own line in the budget, or how would that work?
We could make it its own line.
Yeah. And then you had also reached out with regards to inventory or inventory equipment. So it looks like that could potentially be something that gets becomes non-zero at some point in this process.
Yeah, I just haven't heard back from anybody.
Yeah.
So no, I'm just waiting on response.
Okay.
And so Matt, our IT guy, indicated that there was potentially some need for inventory, but I haven't heard anything from commissioners about what they would like to do. So maybe future discussion topic.
Yeah.
I guess all the iPads are getting pretty old. And then the chairs had significant trouble trying to run Zoom meetings on the equipment that we have. And so probably will need something plugged in there.
Yeah, squaring that away makes sense. I think that, I don't know, it feels like if I have a machine and a rhythm and a setup that works, that I know that works, I'm comfortable with, especially in a year like this. I don't know, it feels like holding off on that expenditure a little bit longer kind of makes sense. But anyway, I guess that's all to be discussed, and I'll see if we can get everyone to pitch in on that.
Okay. And let's see here. We've got public health budget. Let's move into that real quick. Pretty straightforward, except for maybe one discretionary item this request this year. So the two main ones are our contribution to the Southeastern Utah District Health Department, and that request came in at $94,330. And then Four Corners, our mental health services, which we're statutorily required to provide via Four Corners, their request actually dropped because it was based on a strictly population-based formula this time, and so they requested $87,678. And the Moab Area Watershed Partnership via the Southeastern Utah Health Department put in a request for $2,500 in funding for 2021. And so does anybody have any issues with moving forward with the Moab Area Watershed Partnership request of $2,500?
Do you know if that I guess that's news to me. Do you know if that was in reference to, was that just sort of general support of the organization? Do you know if that was in reference to a specific project? Did they specify? Because I didn't see that.
They actually presented on this maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And so we did contribute 1 year, and then in 2019, they didn't present a request, and so they weren't budgeted for 2020 because nobody requested the money. And then they sent an invoice, and I said, well, you never even requested the money. If you want the money, you've got to actually request it and get it budgeted. And so the health department employee did submit a request, and I'm trying to see if I can find it in my email real quick. I think it's more or less to cover Arnie's salary, because there aren't any other expenses.
Right.
We've got to pay for that.
Okay. Well, it's an important effort. I was just curious.
I think it's just to help pay the salary of the director. Because I'm not aware that they really have any other expenses. All right, hearing no other comments, we'll move forward to elections. So typically in a municipal year in the past, we haven't had much in the way of election expenses because the city has done their own elections. But in 2019, they got a new recorder, and she asked that the county run their elections for them, and we did. And so I think Quinn inquired as to whether or not they would want us to do that again next year, and they indicated that they would. So I more or less just took the budget from 2019 and plugged it into 2021. So that's why there is a budget in 2021 for elections, because I think we'll run the city's municipal elections. This inventory expense right here is something that we pay on regardless of whether we have an election or not. It's the rental of the and the tabulator. But these other expenses wouldn't really exist without this cost. Any questions on the budget for elections in 2021? All right. I saw that Angie joined. Angie, is Steve with us? Are we ready to look at the OSTA budget again?
Yeah, Steve's here. We're both here. And Greg's here.
So do the Old Spanish Trail Arena budget. Click that again.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Real quick on that elections thing, sorry, with the city. Would it be worth exploring the idea of drafting up an MOU or something to that effect so that we can have sort of real clear communication and sort of expectations about that partnership, and us kind of knowing with all the time that we would need, what responsibility we have, and so on and so forth. I'm not sure if that could be a possibility or if that would be helpful.
The video.
Yeah, we always do an interlocal agreement if we proceed.
Okay. And that just happened. That just gets renewed every year, or like every
No,
year.
I mean, it's year by year, and so if they want to do it, then we'll have to approve it again.
Okay. All right.
And so, yeah, it's an interlocal agreement. It's actual agreement, contract agreement.
Got it.
All right, here we are with the Old Spanish Trail Arena. We've got salary and benefits plugged in. We fixed the benefits thing here. So most of the increase that we're looking at from $544,000 budget to a $640,000 budget is just going to be relatable to the salary and benefits if OSTA can be fully staffed. 2019 saw about $8,000 in overtime, which we carried over, $1,300 in on-call. So that's plugged in. For whatever reason, there's a bug in this program. If I try to enter on-call, it doesn't come across, and so I have to put it into overtime for now, and then I can move it out after we transfer the budget to the accounting software. And then, I guess, Steve, do you want to just go over any of the changes you might have made from the last time that we were looking at this budget? And I recall that, we were requesting some more detail on some of these requests that were significantly more than past actuals or past budgeted amounts?
Yeah, Chris, we basically reduced everything and cut out things that we wanted, but we'll just spread it out over a longer period of time, subsequent years. There is a spreadsheet attached to each of the items with, lots of items in the category, so you're welcome to look at those. But I think you'll just find everything's reduced fairly substantially. If anything's higher than 2019, 18 or 19, whatever you want to go back to, there's a few things that we've put in, tractor clutch, for instance, on ground equipment maintenance. There's about 5,000 in there. There's also a backflow prevention valve that we need, which will cost us about 3. I forget how much I put in there on maintenance.
Yeah.
So anything that stands out to you that you want to query, and we can go down the list then. Utilities, if you got your cursor on there, that was, we're expecting a busy year. Even now, since things have opened up a little bit, we've brought in quite a bit of traffic over the last 2 months, and the revenue is going up, and we expect it to go up in 2021. So we've increased a little bit on the services, utilities.
Okay.
Probably our maintenance is the biggest one, isn't it? Building and grounds. What have we done with that? Maybe 32, is it?
It's not that far out of line at this point now. You were at 31,467 in 2018.
Yeah.
And then 29,651. So I would say that this is looking much more in line with actuals to me for building grounds and maintenance. The same with the ball field version of it. So that's looking good. Just going down the list. So far, everything's looking much better, much more in line with past year actuals. And I'm trying to see if I can spot anything that stands out. I guess maybe just go over your inventory line.
Yeah, there's some stuff in there.
Well, I can maybe pull up this spreadsheet, go over it real quick. So it looks like new radios for a total of $2,820. Repeater station, I assume for the radios, right?
Yeah, that gives us coverage over the whole site instead of having it drop out all the time.
Okay, so that's 4,979. And new security cameras, 3,000. New compressor, I assume that's air compressor, 600. And then Oster radio frequency, I don't know what that is, but
it's our own frequency because we're messing around with the county from time to time, and their voices come through on our radio.
Okay. And then it looks like we've got a couple pitching mounts also for the ball fields, 1,600 total.
Yeah.
All right. So that's it for inventory. All sounds okay.
Yeah. We also sent you a capital works budget when you get to that. So we got, we reduced the schooling. We put in $1,000 there for Angie and Greg to go on some courses. We haven't got them because things are low keyed in advertising for that sort of thing at the moment. So we're hoping we can get something decent.
So while you're here, we'll go over your capital. Can you all see this spreadsheet?
We can.
Yeah, I can see it, Chris.
All right. So let's go over this. So we've got the number one priority for capital requests. And so just to remind everybody, capital should be for purchases that are over 5,000. Bathroom vinyl and conference room carpet, 9,300.
Yeah, and that's also the admin office as well.
Okay. Bathroom remodel outdoor arena, 5,500. Repair to outdoor bleachers, 5,600. Arena dirt, 6,000. A lot of these, since they're maintenance, may not actually end up being capital purchases. I'll have to kind of think about it, but I don't think that most of these yet are. Anything that's kind of maintenance related, even though it's more than 1,000, it's not like a new purchase. But then we got panels for the outdoor arena, 9,320. Cameras, outdoor arena. Is this?
Didn't we have that before? That might
What's
be.
that?
Didn't we have cameras on?
Yeah, it might be duplicative, and it's less than 5,000 anyway.
Yeah. All right.
Did we knock that one off?
Yeah.
Because I think that one was in your inventory where it should be, because it's not 5,000.
Yeah.
And then North Stall sewer connection, 9,000.
Yeah. Just to explain that one, what we're trying to do, we've got 3 RV hookups up there, and we'd like to connect them to the sewer because there's no decent bathroom nearby. It would just make us for closer to compliance with the planning department's recommendations on that.
Okay. And then padding for the pavilion, 5,610. Again, that's probably not necessarily a capital purchase.
Yeah.
The sewer connection might be. I mean, most of these, I think. I mean, we'll consider them along with the capital requests, but most of these, if they're budgeted, probably would get more placed in either your maintenance line or your inventory line.
I just thought you wanted everything over 5,000 into
be like a piece of equipment that's singularly over 5,000. So, like for instance, the panels are probably not 5,000 each.
No.
They combined be over 5,000, but it's generally capital is going to be for when you have one piece of new equipment. Then it has to be budgeted as capital. That's if it's over 5,000. But when you buy a bunch of things that add up to 5,000, it's probably not going to be capital because each individual piece is not. But anyway, we can go over this and see. It doesn't. I mean, it's going to all come out of the general fund, regardless of whether it's capital or not. It just depends on where it gets put. But we can try to figure out. So I mean, from your perspective, what do you think is essential for 2021?
Well, probably the panels, bathroom, outdoor bathroom. So number 2, again, did we have those panels in inventory? I just thought they were in there duplicated, but anyway. And arena dirt would be important to us.
All right, well, we can go over. So you say the outdoor bathroom.
Yeah, the vinyl, they're basically in order. So, as we go down the list.
So is this priority accurate?
Yes. Yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The first one, if the toilets overflow, in either the female bathroom or the male, they flow into the conference room in our office. And, very slowly, but it wets the floor in both areas. So we want to seal that up. So the bathroom, we could actually pull the carpet out and put it off for another year if we had to, but it'd be, it's a sort of bulk package. We could do the whole lot or just half of it, but the toilets are very important just to stop that effluent flow.
All right. Okay, looks a lot better, Steve. Thank you. Anybody have any questions on this revised OSTA budget? I'm not sure what you can see. My computer's locking up again on me here.
I have a quick question. It's probably a question that's asked every time someone gets their eyes on this budget for the first time, but the benefits line, why is that so high in relation to the salary?
You guys put it up too high. You approved somebody's benefits.
Well, I don't want to show who's got what benefits package, but it's based on the actual benefits, and I can double check it and see if there's anything weird. But if there are a lot of people who are on a traditional family plan, it's going to be pretty high because those are expensive.
Got it. Okay.
And it just depends on who has what healthcare package. And so, like a traditional family plan is going to be like 4 times as much as a single HSA plan. But you can't. We don't discriminate in terms of hiring or anything according to that. So it's kind of a random element of a department's budget, who's on what plan. And I'm not gonna share that information publicly.
But everybody here is on a family plan.
What's that?
Everybody here is on a family plan, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Except Angie.
Yeah, that's sufficient. I'm not asking to open any of that up. That's all I need to know.
Okay. But I'll double check to make sure it's not, out of line, but a traditional family plan is going to be around, $35,000 to, or more per year. So it can be pretty expensive. But like I say, I'll double check it and see if it's not, if there's something weird about it. But it's all calculated just based on the plans that are selected and their actual costs. But oftentimes, these numbers end up being lower because there's vacancies. All right, any other questions on the Old Spanish Trail Arena budget?
I asked Renee to allow for to bring us up to 6 people, and is this reflecting that?
Yes.
Okay, and whether it happens or not, that's a different question. But anyway.
Looks like you've 1 vacant position.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so that was approved. It's just it's kind of frozen for 2020. But yeah, be cleared to recruit again next year.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then cover our animal control budget, which is in the general fund. So we have an agreement with the City of Moab Animal Control Unit that they will respond in the county if they can to any kind of animal issue. And if they do, then they bill us for it. And so that's what this $15,000 budget is. And then we have our request from the Humane Society for $12,000. And they do low cost, reduced or free spay and neuter program with this money. Anybody have any questions on our animal control budget in the general fund? Or issue with approving the Humane Society's request? Did go up in 2020, which was approved for 2020. Okay, now item K are the new position requests, and let's see if I can pull that up. Renee's put together a spreadsheet. So the first one here is we've already gone over with the attorney's office, a proposed prosecutorial assistant. That's a new position. This one in the jail is not a new position, but it's reclassifying, or let's see, is Renee on?
I am, Chris. That
Is this new or reclassified?
new. It would be adding a whole new position.
Oh, okay. So you've already got this one into Advantage?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So this is a new position then. And then this third one is a potential sheriff's deputy that would be for enforcement on BLM lands. And as I understand it, if it works out the way we want, the BLM will pay us for this position. So even though it's a new proposed position, I think that the amount that they're willing to compensate us would cover the entire position's salary and benefits.
That's what I understood as well, Chris. The contract would be for 5 years, and I think Steve said it was like $120,000 a year to cover that position.
So that would fully cover that Deputy 2 position. And then this clerk, this one is not a new position, but reclassified to be a grant specialist, accounts receivable position. And I plugged that one in. That one's plugged into the clerk's budget. And then this business development specialist in the travel council. Is this a new position proposed, Renee?
That one was going to be a retweak of the events, the one that Elaine has open right now, the events and info specialist.
So not new, but just redefined and reclassified.
Yep.
And then tell us about this P&Z admin assistant.
So they had the community and economic development specialist. I want to say that was at a grade 9. And for this last little part of 2020, Olivia's been filling in as the admin assistant, kind of doing those just general admin duties in the department. And Mila felt like that is the most useful for the department. So kind of rechanging that community and economic development to this admin assistant position.
So not new, but just reclassified. And then this last one is travel council position. This kind of came up as a result of discussions during a commission meeting where commissioners requested we investigate and propose a potential position for predominantly for doing COVID compliance at events. There's a lot of concern that these really large events that we get, that there's nobody actually available to monitor whether or not they're following their COVID mitigation plan that they're required to fill out. it probably wouldn't be full-time year-round, but would be full-time seasonal. And so, since we would probably be required to offer benefits, full-time benefits, because they'd be working enough that we would have to offer them, that we might add in also some other code enforcement type duties, overnight accommodations, compliance, perhaps TRT compliance, that kind of thing. So, but it's mostly relative to the commissions and everyone's concern about whether or not we'd be able to safely hold events. And a position like this would make everybody, I think, feel a lot better about continuing to facilitate events if we could ensure that they were being safe and following COVID compliance and their mitigation plan. And that's it. Not a lot of new requests this year. Anybody have any questions on the proposed positions, either reclassified or newly proposed? And I've got all these plugged into the Advantage budget as well.
Hey, Chris, this is Elaine. On that business development specialist, I mean, since I have the position open and it's actually in my budget, would that be, I know it's a new position, we're changing the title, but do we have to budget it this way as new since the position already exists in my office?
We're not, this isn't budgeting it as new. This is just showing, this is just more a spreadsheet showing changes from.
Oh, okay, okay, just checking.
Some of them are new and some aren't. They're not all new. But what's new is that it's being reclassified, or, you know, the job description is being redetermined.
Right, okay, thanks.
Yeah, not all of these are full-on new positions. In fact, about half of them aren't. All right, any questions or comments before we move on? Looks like we might be on track to get Gabe out of here before he has to go to his other meeting. And then the cost of living adjustment. Like I said, the current inflation rate is 1.4% over the last 12 months. And so I did go and add that into our salary lines as an adjustment. I calculated that countywide, and this includes the general fund and all other funds, every single employee in the whole county, the total cost of a 1.4% cost of living adjustment would be $166,378 across the entire county. $166,378. So does the Budget Advisory Board want to take an opinion on that, or is there any discussion about it?
I would say to include it, and then the commission can decide to remove it if need be. I don't know if I have the authority to assert that.
Yeah. And so, okay, it's already included, and so I guess my question from the Budget Advisory Board is, do I have the approval of the board to, you know, do as Gabe suggested, include it, and then the commission can get rid of it if they want? It is included in the budget right now. And I think that, you know, it'd be helpful also to take a look at the bottom line, especially in the general fund. So I need to go do something. I just needed to make a quick adjustment to show the true status of our bottom line. Yeah, so right now.
This is Chris Kaufman.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think whether we include it or not, it should be one of the items along with, you know, new positions that the commission considers.
Yeah, definitely. So right now, yeah, the bottom line on the general fund, which is the one we're mostly concerned about, we're about $203,700 $204,000 in the red. And if you remember, Chris, we closed out 2019 about $500,000 in expenditures less than budget, which is about 3.6% contingency. And if we had the same contingency for 2021, we'd be looking at about a $535,000 contingency. So when you're looking at budgeting in the red, you have to kind of factor in that there is contingency in some of these budgets. It's not a lot, like I say, maybe 3.5% total. But you have to factor that in when you consider whether or not you're proposing a balanced budget. And in my opinion, you know, as long as this amount that we're showing in the red is less than the contingency, then we're very likely can say that we have a balanced budget. And so I'm saying that, you know, with 203,000, 204,000 in the red at this point, that we are within contingency, but there's some caveats that I have to give. And the main one is that our enterprise lease, if we move forward with that master equity lease, hasn't been plugged in every single department yet. And so I do expect this number to go up in the general fund some, especially considering our main first foray into that lease program is going to be to replace all the sheriff's office vehicles. However, they have about 10 vehicles that they're also going to sell, which we own, so that will, you know, offset some of the cost of the lease. But I didn't even get the financial information until about 9 o'clock last night, and so I haven't plugged that in totally. But their original projection was about $300,000 across the entire county for 2021. And not all of that, you know, would be in the general fund. But every other fund is running in the black, except for Family Support Center, which we're having to send a budget about $66,000 over to Family Support. And the general fund right now is in the red, but it's within contingency. So I'd say right now we've got a balanced budget, you know, except for the Family Support Center, which is requiring subsidy.
So, Chris, you're saying that even with the COLA adjustment, it would be within a reasonably balanced budget.
Yeah, and so this is with COLA. So we're looking at $204,000 in the red, which we would have to budget to pull out of the bank, out of our fund balance. But the reality is that it's within contingency, and so unless, you know, all of that contingency gets spent, and it never does, then, you know, we're likely to end up more in the range of, like, you know, $250,000 in the black when we close the year. Because the contingencies, you know, it used to be quite a bit higher before we started budgeting the way we are right now. It used to be, you know, more like 5 to 8%. But we've tightened it down, and now, you know, the 2019 closed out about 3.6% contingency. So, you know, if we apply the same contingency to 2021, it's going to be around $535,000.
And Chris, just a point of clarification, that percentage that you calculated, that was off of our closing versus the budget passed in December of 2018.
Yeah. And so that, you know, the opening budget was probably even more. So the contingency at the opening budget may have been a bit more. I'd have to calculate that. I can't remember how much we reduced it. You know, we probably reduced it a little bit in 2019. I can't remember exactly.
Oh, so that percentage was off the budget passed in December 2019.
Yeah.
Okay, and so yeah, I think that would be a point I would make, is that at this stage of the game, we really want to be looking at what the contingency is compared to the opening budget.
Yeah. And I'll have to look at that. I'll have to run a special report. You know, there's definitely, it went both ways when I did the amendment. Some departments had to go up substantially, some came down a little bit. But I'd have to take a look at how we amended it. You know, obviously 2020 is so whacked out, we're not going to be able to use it for anything. We're going to have to ignore 2020 in all of our trends moving from here forward, but hopefully we will. You know, things, you know, we don't want to have 2020 year moving forward, but 2019 was a good year for establishing trends. It was really the first year, you know, that we could take a look at this new budgeting process and how it works as compared with prior years. So anyway, you know, I would say that where we're at right now, I would call it balanced. And I don't think that even though we would have to budget $204,000 or, you know, to draw from the fund balance that we would actually end up doing that.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment. And as I recall, in 2019, the opening budget was closer to $600,000 or $700,000 in the red, and we closed out basically balanced. So, yeah, I would agree with you there.
Okay. All right. So statutorily, I have to present the tentative budget to the commission next week. And so I think we've covered most of the, you know, the main points. There's still, you know, like I say, a little bit of tidying up that I have to do, especially with that enterprise lease. But does anybody have any other questions or concerns on the tentative 2021 budget anywhere in the county? Anything we should cover that we haven't? And if not, I guess what I'd be looking for is a motion to approve presenting this tentative budget, you know, subject to some tweaks, especially with the fleet, our vehicle fleet, to the county commission at the meeting on the 4th.
Hey, Chris, this is Elaine. I had a question about that, the art trails.
Yeah.
Were you able to move that back into the budget?
I don't know. I guess, well, we could go over that right now. We got a request from Moab Art Trails in 2020, I think, for $10,000, which we never paid out, and they didn't exactly request being paid out in 2020.
Right.
I informed them
Right.
that TRT's way down, so they reapplied for 2021, and they basically used that money to purchase. You know, they do this program where artists put their art up all around town, and they hope, if possible, to raise the money to purchase one of those sculptures as a permanent installation. And so, where would that be in your budget, Elaine, if we plugged it in?
You know what? We're going to have to put it into, let's see here. Art trails. I was thinking that we might want to put it into, well.
So right now, just so everyone's aware, the travel council budget is $300,000 in the black, and so I've budgeted to send $300,000 to fund balance, which you know, probably needs to go to the fund balance because it needs to recover the fund balance from this year. Just so everyone's aware, you know, that's surplus revenue that's not budgeted for any other purpose besides just to go back into their fund balance, which we do need for cash flow purposes. But we're not hurting for money, so to speak, that's for sure.
Chris, Chris, I've got a lot of, different entries. I mean, I don't know if we need to make because I think this will be ongoing, I'm guessing. So might we want to establish, a line item specifically for art trails?
We could, or just, you got a bazillion others that,
I know there's so many, there was nothing, unless you just want to put it in to one of those open entries for now. And then
All right.
we can
Change.
make an official line item, because I think it's probably something we're going to do every year.
all right. Does anybody have a problem with approving the Moab Art Trails request for 2021?
No problem here.
Okay, got that in. Anything else?
So Chris, I just have a question about the fleet. My vehicle has over 100,000 miles, which we're still driving it. It's fine. But you're talking about going to a lease. Would that mean that we would be eliminating the travel council vehicle?
Eventually, yeah. I mean, the idea, it wouldn't happen all in one year.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But, Cody, our fleet manager, would work with each department to surplus their vehicles that they own and replace them with leased vehicles.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we're good. I mean, the vehicle's in really good shape, even though it has a lot, miles. It's fine. Okay.
I mean, at this point, no details have been worked out. The only thing that's ultra crucial for 2021 is the sheriff's department's vehicles. They're all on lease, and they're going to lose that lease, and so we need to replace it. And so beyond that, it would be, discretionary department by department. It's not really entirely been worked out yet.
Okay.
So that's the last big thing that I think I need to be able to plug into the budget, and we can review that at a joint budget meeting with the commission. But at this point, I'll plug in the best information I have. Like I said, I did get some information late last night that I haven't had a chance to put in. And the proposal from Cody showed that it would, across the entire county, the estimate would be about, I think, $300,000 in lease and like $44,000 in sales related revenue from the vehicles that we would sell and surplus. So the balance, looking around 260, something like that, across the entire county in lease expenses if you deduct the sale of fixed assets. And some departments have already plugged in the enterprise lease, like we just saw with the roads department. They've already plugged it in to their budget anyway, but it's not in the general fund's budget yet. So that $204,000 in the red will go up, relative to whatever the cost of those leases are. But then, I have to also plug in any sale of vehicles into the revenue side. That's the only big thing that's outstanding that I haven't plugged into the budget yet.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the tentative budget.
All right, is there a second?
Second, this is Gabriel.
Any discussion on approving the tentative budget? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes unanimously. And there is a future consideration where we're going to have to work to schedule a joint budget meeting with the commission to go over some of the major decision points, new position requests, for instance, cost of living adjustment, capital equipment requests, those kinds of things. And so we'll send out, we'll try to work with the commission. Like I said, I was thinking we'd just maybe tag it on to their meeting on the 17th, but I don't know if that's going to be possible because they have another joint meeting with the city that they're scheduling. So maybe we'll try to do it on a Friday like we normally do. Any other future considerations before we close the meeting? All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so
Chris.
much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right. I'm going to adjourn the meeting of the Grand County Budget Advisory Board at 10:41 a.m.